Hi, and welcome back for the second edition of It's the Mail with me, Jimmy Page Turner. Once again, we're here. I'm going to answer your email. We're going to give BP a break so he can relax and take it easy and get some rest and enjoy his books and his old movies. So we have number of questions today, all across the board. So we're going to get to them. There's a total of five, one for each day of the work week, the traditional work week, Monday through Friday. So we're going to get to all these in a minute. But first, you're probably seeing this T-shirt and you're saying, "I wonder if that T-shirt is an original and official Bad Company promotional T-shirt." And I am here to tell you, beloved, that it is. This was given to me by none other than Mr. Mick Rouse, the lead guitarist of that band. Now, this is from 1974, long before I became Jimmy Page Turner of Boppity Records and Boppity Books. I was just little Jimmy Page Turner, cub reporter for a small local newspaper. But I had written some nice things about that band. So I went to the show because I got tickets because I liked them. And I wrote out a little note and I gave it to one of the helpful and courteous event staff at what was then known as the Dallas Memorial Auditorium. And they took it backstage, and a few minutes later, they came back and took me backstage, where I was introduced to the band and thanked for writing such nice things about them and given this T-shirt, which I have cherished ever since. And that's 1974. It pays to say nice things about people. Remember, if you can't say something nice, sometimes it is better not to say anything at all. So, that said, let's get to this week's questions. Like I said, we got sort of a range of questions here, and I'm looking forward to answering every one. The first one comes in, and this is right in, as I said, this is actually about marketing and advertising, which is something I know about. And so it is, as they say, in my wheelhouse. So let's see if we just can't hit this one out of the park. So it says, "Dear Mr. J.P. Turner, will you or Mr. Parker explain local switches or local switching? I am trying to get a new enterprise underway and need to get the most from my advertising dollar." And it's signed Best Wishes, Dave. Well, we all want to get the most out of our advertising dollar. More bang for your buck. So, Dave, well, local switch is when you're watching television and you see a commercial for a nationally known grocery store like Kroger's, let's say, and then, or for Chevrolet automobiles. And then right after that comes another commercial for your local Kroger store, your neighborhood Kroger store, or the Chevrolet dealership that's just down the road, and they're telling you all the specials that are available at each one. That change from that nationally shown commercial is what's known as a local switch. Okay? It is a fine way to advertise your product because it guarantees you won't be spending extra money for some sucker in Iowa to watch your advertisements if you happen to be in New Mexico. Not going to do you any good, no matter what kind of deal they want to cut you with that or talk about, well, we'll get you this coverage. You got to get it local because that's where everything starts. So that, Dave, is what a local switch is. Best of luck with your enterprise, whatever it may be. Okay, the second question. It says, is there any, this is like a trick question, but we're going to deal with it. It says, is there any truth to the rumor? And it's signed Anonymous. Well, Anonymous, more than you would be comfortable with. My advice to you, my friend, is to stop whatever you're doing right now and skedaddle. There may still be time for you to save yourself. And I hope that answers your question. Now, the third email that came in is a bit more personal. Not for me, it's about Bill, but does concern something he said on an episode of Gold Coast After Dark. To wit, why does BP want his grandson to call him Ace? And that is signed by Johnny. Well, Johnny, there are a couple of reasons for this. One, Ace is one of Bill's two long-standing nicknames, sort of a family nickname. It's one he's had since childhood. There's also cinematic precedence for this. A very fine movie called Junior Bonner, starring Steve McQueen, has as his father the legendary Robert Preston, and his character's name is Ace Bonner. And Ace has a couple of grandchildren, and everybody just calls him Ace. Don't know what his first name really is. It doesn't matter because everybody calls him Ace, and that's what he likes to be called. So that would be why Bill would like his grandson, Jax, who all this is for, to think of him as Ace. There is another movie where the word shows up as someone's name, and that movie is by a Japanese band and called Guitar Wolf, and the name of the movie is Wild Zero. And there's a young man in that movie who calls himself Ace, although he admits later on that his name is not really Ace at all. That's just what he calls himself. That's not the case with Bill. Bill has long been called Ace by any number of people. It's what he answers to. So I cannot see any reason and can fully understand why he would like his grandson, Jax, to just call him Ace. To say Grandpa Parker is a little too formal for Bill. So, Jax, if you are watching this episode of It's the Mail with me, Jimmy Page Turner, just call your grandfather Ace going forward. All right, now that brings us to the fourth question. Fourth question is a bit of a longer one. So it says, I have watched every episode of Gold Coast After Dark. Thank you. I will be sure to tell Bill. As a rule, I enjoy sound effects when they are appropriately, and I think you misspelled that word there, but it's appropriately and what are you trying to say there? Judiciously, appropriately and judiciously used. But why is the twinkly-eyed saxophonist twinkly-eyed? It says, best wishes, little Bobby Sue. Well, everybody likes good sound effects, especially when they are used appropriately and in a judicious manner. As for why the twinkly-eyed saxophonist in After Halloween is twinkly-eyed, I would imagine, little Bobby Sue, that is because, like Bill, he's not from around here. We already talked about early on how Bill is really, I wasn't kidding, Bill is really, I'd describe him as a pan-galactic, pan-dimensional being. Uh, that may have been stretching it, but Bill is not like you and me. And there's a saying, like attracts like. People are not like magnets, where you got to have opposites all the time. It's like those little dogs with the magnets in their feet. You try pressing them up against each other, and it just doesn't work. They keep pushing apart. But if you switch one over to where it's negative, positive, it works. Okay? But people are not magnets, especially Bill. So, in this case, it would seem natural that someone would show up a little bit different than anybody else. And let's face it, you got to be a little bit different than other people if you go and play saxophone in the middle of a forest. It's not a bad thing, it just means you're different. Bill's different. The twinkly-eyed saxophonist is different. I suspect that his eyes twinkle because he's happy. So maybe that's why the twinkly-eyed saxophone's eyes twinkle. That could be one reason. So, but we may learn more as the story goes on. I have not read the story, so I'm learning about this as fast and at the same time as you are. So we will find out together as Bill continues reading After Halloween. Okay, that brings us to our last email. Okay, thank you for your patience today. Thank all of you who have written in. And now, so this one here says, where and what exactly is the Billverse, and why does BP's stories, what are you saying? Why do BP's stories take place there instead of in the real world? And this comes from someone who signs themselves as a dedicated reader who has several of BP's books. Well, dedicated reader, first off, thank you for writing in. Thank you for following Gold Coast After Dark, and especially thank you for buying Bill's books. Always makes them feel good to hear that somebody enjoyed one of his books. Now, the reason Bill talks about the Billverse is because that's where he lives. We talked about that before, and I think he has pointed out as well. He might have gone like this or like this and said, oh, that's where Bill lives. He calls it the Billverse because it's a bit lighter than to say, well, I just live inside my head. Because you say that to somebody and they think maybe you got issues, maybe you have problems. But if somebody says, well, tell me, sir, where do you live? If you say, oh, I live in the Billverse, they might think it's a nice little suburb somewhere, or maybe a new set of apartments that were built with a nice view of the lake. Where Bill lives, he had a friend of his one time, a long time ago. He's a good friend of his. And she told him, she said, you just really do live in your own world and you only come out when you have to. And that's the truth. Where Bill lives, is somewhere. You know how sometimes you see things, you think you see things out of the corner of your eye, and then you go to look, there's nothing there, but you could have sworn there was something there. That place out of the corner of your eye, that's the Billverse. That is where Bill lives. That's where he feels safest and is happiest. Now, you might say, well, it sounds like Bill is crazy. And maybe that sounds like a non clinical diagnosis. And in this century, in this year of grace, we do not use words like crazy. I don't know what word they use for that, but crazy is not it. We don't use that word anymore. There's lots of words we don't use. Midgets, another one. We don't talk about midgets anymore. We don't talk about crazy people. We just say he's a unique individual. But that's why. So that's where he lives, and that's where his stories take place, because that's where he sees them. That's where he finds them. I mean, let's face it. Do you think you can just walk out into a forest and find some guy playing a saxophone? No. But in the Billverse, that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you find a guy playing a saxophone in a forest? Lots of things make sense in the Billverse. But, Johnny, I hope that clears that up a little bit. He likes it there. I personally have not been there. I don't know how you get into the Billverse. I'm just grateful he comes out once in a while and says hello. So that's the best I can do. I'm sorry, I cannot be more precise. I can't be more clear about that. I can only tell you what I know. I mean, if he comes walking in and I say, hey, BP, what's shaking in the Billverse today? He's just going to go, ah, 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 ah. That's what he does. He just goes, ah, 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 ah. He's a funny kind of guy, but we love him. So, that said, that is the end of our email for this week. So, thank you for following Gold Coast After Dark. Thank you for writing emails with your concerns and your questions about what you see there and hear on It's the Mail with me, Jimmy Page Turner. We'll see you next Friday.